Hey, what's going on YouTube? Jake here with Venture Visuals, and today I'm excited because we're gonna be breaking down how I edit hip-hop portraits in Adobe Lightroom. So when I was growing up, I was really into videography and filming myself and my friends doing skits, skateboarding, that sort of stuff, and photography was always kind of an afterthought to me. It wasn't until around the 9th grade that I got my first DSLR camera, the Canon T2i, and I realized how much fun photography was. All throughout high school, I was taking photos, but I wasn't really editing those photos. It wasn't until my senior year of high school that I decided to attend a photography class at a local community college that I realized how important photography editing was. And it was definitely intimidating opening up Lightroom for the first time and just seeing all the possibilities, all the knobs, all the capabilities within the software. After high school, I kept editing photos because it just got more and more addicting. And now pretty much anytime I go out and shoot a video, I always try to take some photos as well, just because I enjoy the photo editing process so much. Today I'm just going to be showing you guys my workflow when it comes to editing hip-hop portraits in Adobe Lightroom and some things that I think will be useful for you guys out there when you're editing your own photos. If you're excited about this video, hit the like button down below and let's begin. Today we're going to be using Adobe Lightroom Classic. So the first thing we're going to do here in Adobe Lightroom Classic is just import our photos. So we're going to come down here to import, and that's going to pull up our source tab over here. Now my photos are already organized in a folder on my desktop, so I'm just going to go to my local hard drive, go to my desktop, click on Lightroom Photos. We have the photos here selected that we're going to be editing today, and now all we're going to do is hit import, and now I can see everything here in the main window. We're just going to click on that photo and hit develop, and that's going to bring it into this develop window here. And over here on the right you can see we got all these options for different styles, different customizations. So if you want to spend a while just customizing the individual knobs here and making your own look, that is by all means something you can do. But today I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit of a faster way to achieve a professional look from a photo like this, and that's just by using Lightroom Presets. So over here on the left we can see the presets tab. I'm just going to drop that down, and as you can see we have a lot of presets already installed just by default. We could open up these cinematic ones and just scroll over these cinematic presets here, but I'm going to show you guys my presets, right? So I'm going to open up this user presets folder right here, and you can see all these presets on the left side, and as I scroll over them it's gonna customize our photo. So Lightroom presets are basically like Instagram filters. They're just preset styles for you to edit your photos with. So I'm actually gonna choose this preset called Matte Classic over here on the left, and you can see it changes all the knobs over here on the right side already to kind of give it that default look. From here what we can do is just tweak the individual knobs how we want them, and we're using the preset as more of a starting point to get the look that we want, right? So this is obviously a very matte type of look. It's very washed out. So here in the knobs I can start tweaking the individual aspects of this image. Obviously we want the highlights to be down because that leaves more detail in the sky. The shadows could come out a little bit and reveal more of his face, you know, so it's a little bit lighter underneath his eyes. And then maybe we can increase the contrast a little bit so we get a little bit more sharper image. What we can do here is maybe with these orange tones, saturate the orange tones a little bit more and give that sunset more color. And then when I scroll down even farther here, we can color grade the image. Let's go with like some orange highlights, and let's go with some like blue shadows, right? So that's grading right there. We can grade our image how we want to. We can customize that. If we want to see what this image looked like before we applied this preset and did some tweaking, we can come down here to this double Y icon, and we're going to click that, right? So here we have the original image on the left and then our edited image on the right. Let's move on to another photo example. Let's go to this one right here. We got some different tones in this image. Now let's go through some of these presets. So there's a few cool ones straight off rip. This one's kind of cool. I really like Afterlife. That one's a really cool preset. I really like this preset called Orange Fanta here, except I really am not a fan of the overall skin tone, right? So if we compare the original to this one, obviously the skin tone is much different. So we just had to make a few tweaks here to get the skin looking okay. So what we need to do is come down here to our color, and we're gonna change the orange bunch of this image, right? So we're gonna take the saturation down a little bit. We're gonna bring the luminance up just a hair. We're gonna change maybe the hue of his skin so it looks more natural, right? So that looks a lot better than what it was when we originally threw this preset on here. Maybe even take the saturation down a little bit more. Maybe add a little dehaze. I think we might brighten it up a little bit, so we'll take that exposure up a little bit. And now we're looking really nice. I'm really liking this. And this image was also shot during more of a winter day. Obviously you can see there's not a lot of greenery here in the background. So this is more of a cool image. So I'm actually gonna take the temperature down a little bit. And we're gonna make this look a little bit cooler in some of those warmer areas, right? We're gonna make it look a little more washed out, not as warm and friendly, more just kind of like cold looking. Maybe increase that contrast a little bit. The preset is what gave me the idea, the starting point to go after this look, right? So that's why I really love Lightroom presets, is because they easily help you identify kind of the overall vibe of the look that you want to go for and show you new styles that maybe you hadn't even thought of yet. So I really love Lightroom presets for that reason. This image is looking really good. I'm gonna actually bring up the clarity a little bit more. We'll say that's a keeper for now. We're gonna move on to another photo. Obviously this one has some indoor lighting. It's not outside, so this one's gonna look a little bit different with the presets. Let's just start at the top and just scroll through the Lightroom presets that are in my pack, which you can download on my website if you're interested. We're just gonna find a preset that is looking cool. This one looks kind of sick. This one looks cool, you know, kind of changes the colors around, adds some grain. This Red Devil one kind of just brings out the shadows. I think we're gonna go with this bling bling preset right here. So I'm gonna click on that preset and you can see, you know, this one has some more dramatic curves. What I wanna do with this is just maybe decrease the contrast a little bit so it's not too harsh between the highlights and the shadows. Increase the shadows. His eyes are almost too dark. We wanna be able to see his eyes a little bit. So let's bring up the exposure a little bit and let's bring down the clarity, bring down the texture, bring down the dehaze, and also bring up the blacks a little bit, right? So there we go. Now we're starting to see his eyes a little bit more. So this is starting to look pretty sick. Let's see what it looks like compared to the original, right? So here's the original and here's the edited. Here we have a very distinct kind of matte look. We can change the reds in the image. We can change the hue of all the reds. We can make it more of a purple, or we could go more of a yellow, which is kind of sick. Let's go ahead and check out a few of these. Cityscape looks okay. This one's very, very stylized, and I think it goes well with the colors. Maybe I'll bring up this dehaze a little bit, play around with the exposure, bring up the exposure a little bit. Let's see what the before and after looks like for this one. This is already really cool looking, right? So sometimes the preset is good right off the bat, and you really don't need to do too much. This preset obviously gave us a really cool, distinct look right off rip, and we didn't have to do that much tweaking to the overall image to get it looking pretty much complete, pretty much finished, right? So that's really cool thing about presets. It just saves you a lot of time. Let's do this one of him jumping over the car. So we click on it, hit develop, bring it in. All right, so let's start scrolling through some of these. Just used Afterlife on the one before. Obviously the Afterlife one doesn't work as good here, right? The colors don't look as right. It kind of looks funky. So for this photo, what I noticed the most are his red shoes while he's jumping over the car, right? His red colored shoes really stick out. So I think what I want to do for this photo is find a preset that really helps emphasize kind of those red shoes and kind of washes out everything else. I did find this one called In Sync that looks really cool, right? So obviously we get this washed out kind of looking background with these red shoes. The only thing I notice is that his skin is kind of this like gray color. We don't want his skin to look washed out. We just want his shoes to be popping, and we want his skin to kind of stay normal looking. So we need to come down here to the orange color, and we need to increase the saturation a little bit, increase the luminance, and obviously that's not doing enough here. So I think what we need to focus on is more of this deeper blue magenta type of color. Let's try this other pink color here on the very end, right? So that's hitting more of the colors in his face. So when I do that, increase the luminance a little bit, we can increase the brightness of his face, change the hue a little bit. Obviously there is a little bit more natural looking skin color, and we're starting to get there. So what I'm gonna do is just take this circle icon here, this is our masking tool, and we're gonna switch to our brush right here, right? So now what I'm gonna do is just paint over this area of his face. Now, as you can see, we get this red paint that kind of appears on it. So what we need to do is uncheck this box over here on the right. That's gonna take where it shows us our mask out of the frame. So now if I change these individual knobs over here on the right, you can see we're changing his skin just in that spot. So we're just gonna increase the contrast a little bit. Let's also give it some more saturation. Now we're getting a really nice kind of skin tone. Let's take down the exposure. Perfect. Right, so now we have like a pretty good skin tone on his face, and this image looks really, really nice. We kind of have those muted greens in the back, and his red shoes are really popping out, and it's just kind of an interesting environment as well. We shot this in a junkyard, so it was pretty cool. So now let's cycle through our 2 final photos. First thing I want to do is just straighten out this photo, so I'm going to come over here to the crop. We're gonna hit auto, and that's just gonna straighten out our photo so it's more linear. Now what I'm gonna do is just cycle through some of these presets and just see what kind of looks we get here. So that one's not bad. Downtown isn't bad. Dreamland isn't bad. This one's really cool right here. This in sync one looks really cool, but we just did that on the last photo example. This lo-fi one looks pretty cool, pretty heavy vignette on that one. Orange Fanta, this one looks pretty crazy. I'm actually really liking that one. For this one, we're gonna roll with lo-fi to kind of switch things up a little bit. So I'm just gonna click on that preset. One thing I noticed are like some more bluish tones here in the middle of this photo. So I'm gonna click on this blue tone curve. I'm just gonna emphasize that blue a little bit more by bringing up that tone curve a little bit, right? So now it's a little bit bluer, a little bit more maroonish down here in the bottom. The other color I really notice in this image is this red of his jacket, right? So we can try playing around with the reds in this image as well. So these tone curves are really, really useful and can really help give your image a look. And the cool thing you gotta remember about these tone curves is that you can make multiple points on the tone curve and continue to shape the colors in your image even more. If I take this point up here, we're changing more of the stuff in the middle of this image rather than the entire image. Now if I take it down, you can see again, we're only changing that little area, right? So you can get really custom with the tone curve in different parts of the image. I actually like this look a little bit more blue here behind him. It kind of makes the red pop a little bit more. It looks really nice. And I think what I want to do with this image is just add a little grain to it. So I'm gonna scroll down here to grain. I'm gonna turn my grain up to maybe 40%. We're gonna take the size down. We want really small, fine grains, so maybe up to 5. Then we're gonna take the roughness way up. Let's go to like 100 for that. So that's gonna give our image some grain here. It makes it a little bit more textury. I think this image looks really, really cool. Let's go ahead and edit the final image for today, which is this one right here. Now this one is interesting because we're shooting directly into the sun. So I'm gonna scroll through some of these presets here, and obviously we're gonna get some different looks. So let's find a preset that really does a good job highlighting the orange and blues of this image. I really like this preset, 4th of July, which is actually the first preset on the list. It's just maybe a little bit too contrasty for my liking. So what we need to do is just take this contrast down here a little bit, you know, kind of keep the image a little bit more evened out, not so harsh. So, because when we turn up the contrast all the way, you see how kind of like too much that is, and if we take it down all the way, there's just not enough, right? So we want to find that fine line, and in order to do that with most of these knobs, if you're looking to kind of customize your own presets and start from scratch, or maybe you're just unfamiliar with Lightroom and what all these tools do, what I would suggest doing is just taking each one of these knobs and going all the way to both extremes to really see what each knob is doing. So this is going to be where you do your color grading right here on these color wheels. So I'm going to take these midtones, I'm going to make them a little bit more orange. So what I'm going to do is just click and drag that little middle point, and I'm going to kind of hover over more of like an orange tone, right? So that gives us some more orange tones here in the middle of our image. These shadows, I'm going to keep them a little bit more blue. As I increase the blue shadows, you can see what parts of the image that is changing, right? So that's the extreme version right there. So we just want a little bit of a bluer tone in those shadows. So I'm going to take that blue shadow, I'm going to adjust it until I'm satisfied. So maybe like right about there, right? So that keeps our shadows looking pretty nice. And then with these dials underneath each one of these color wheels, you can change the midtones, the shadows, and the highlights, kind of the emphasis of each one of those in the actual photo, right? So if I want to take the shadows down, I can do that right from this color grading area here in Adobe Lightroom, which is really nice. Then I can play around with the blending, right? So if I take the blending all the way down, gives us more of that original preset feel. And then if I take the blending all the way up, it kind of cools the image out, especially there in the middle. I can change the balance around so you can see that changes the image as well. I actually like the balance turned up pretty much all the way. And then what I really like doing in Adobe Lightroom is coming down here to lens corrections and checking the box for remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. And this is just gonna straighten out any warping in your image. So this is looking pretty good here. I might want his face a little bit sharper, so let's just increase the clarity a little bit more. As you can see, that changes some of the colors too. That's not too bad. So now when we compare the before and after here, you can see, you know, here's the before, here's the after. It looks really, really good with the color that we did. So when you're ready to export your photos, just come back here to library and you're gonna hold command on Mac and you're just gonna click all of the photos that you edited that you want to export, right? So I'm just gonna command click on all of these photos that we've edited today. I'm gonna come up here to file, I'm gonna hit export, and I'm gonna save this to a folder on my desktop. We're gonna call this hip hop portraits. I'm gonna make sure the image format is a JPEG here, color space sRGB, that's fine. Resize to fit, that's up to you if you want to resize your images or not. Depending on if you're uploading these photos to a website, you might wanna change this resolution down to 72, but I usually keep mine around 300. And then you can add your watermark down here at the bottom if that's something that you desire. From here, I'm just gonna hit export, and that's just gonna export out all of these photos that we've just edited from Lightroom. And you can see up here at the top left, it's gonna show us the progress of our export. And then on my desktop in a folder called Hip Hop Portraits, we can see each of the images that we just exported. And from here, you can transfer them to your phone, you can text them to other people. So I highly suggest dabbling with Adobe Lightroom Classic. And I also recommend that if you don't have a MacBook or if you don't have Adobe Lightroom on a desktop computer, you experiment with it on your phone. They do have an app available for mobile. Thank you guys for watching this breakdown of how I edit hip hop photos in Adobe Lightroom Classic. If you're a creative out there who's interested in joining a community of other creatives, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button down below. We're gonna be posting a lot more tutorials this year, dropping a lot more visual packs on my website, venturevisuals.com, and I want you guys to be a part of the growth in the journey. If you're interested in downloading these Lightroom presets that you saw used today in this video, definitely check out the link down below. I also have some free presets for Lightroom that you can get by downloading the free pack on my website. I'll include a link for that down below as well. And if you have any questions or any issues at all when it comes to editing your own portraits, definitely comment down below. I'm happy to help you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, guys, I'm Jake Venner. Peace out.